Thank you, Les Corona. I too am delighted to get some time here to speak on this bill here this evening. And, you know, there are many areas, the family leave bill, there are many parts of it that need to be, you know, it's proper, that we would have proper legislation, and indeed it's too late for a lot of people. And, you know, it's interesting, the flexible working patterns that have been here, and research across country comparison of parental leave shows that in Ireland there remains a substantial gap between the end of leave, including merging both paid and unpaid leave entitlements, and early childhood education care entitlements as well. So we must have as broad a sense of, you know, facilities that will suit both shared parental leave, both for the both parents, and it's very important also, as I said, that we look at our European counterparts. And there's a case given that the levels of attendance at formal services for children under the age of 3, and in line with the average seen throughout the European member states. And we know how important it is, and how, I suppose, the bringing of a child into the world is such a huge step. And both parents are needed and will be needed, and are always in a supportive role. And where it hit back, I suppose, in olden times was the woman's always only got the leave, and the men got none, or the parents. But now both parents will have to. And for adopted parents especially, I think it's vital that we have a situation where they can get under this bill, they'll be able to have a proper entitlement to the parent leave. And the bill, as I said, to amend the Adoptive Leave Act 1995 to enable couples, regardless of sex, who have jointly adopted, to choose which member or couple avails of the adoptive leave. And also amends the Parents' Leave Benefit Act of 2019 to increase the duration of parents' leave, as well as the associated entitlement to parents' benefits from 2 to 5 weeks. And that's very important, because goodness knows, you know, time flies so fast, and it can be so, you know, tiring, and there can be difficulties with birth, and there can be issues. So they need that kind of time and space. It also amends the Child and Family Agency Act 2013 to increase the number of ordinary board members of the TUSLA, the Child and Family Agency, from 7 to 9. Now, I have been very critical of TUSLA in the past, and I still am critical in many aspects about TUSLA. And I don't know what increasing the board members by 2 from 7 to 9 will get the kind of changes that are needed there. And just, I know it's in the bill, but to digress a small bit, I think that the whole inception and conception, and indeed the bringing into the world of this TUSLA organisation, and I think it was rushed. It was just literally a kind of a hiving off of certain sections of the HSE to set this Child and Family Agency. And indeed, it has a lot to learn, and there can be there are many shortcomings. And I have cases on a regular basis. Families are very dissatisfied. And I also have cases, you know, often contacted by Garda Síochána, who end up as a babysitting service on weekends when TUSLA aren't available, and they're told of cases maybe at 3 o'clock or half 3 of a Friday evening, and they have to get involved, and that's rough justice, and it's not proper. So there are areas in TUSLA that need to be looked at. The Family Leave Bill 2021 then follows on from the General Scheme of Parents' Leave and Benefits Amendment Bill 2020, which was thankfully subject to pre-legislative scrutiny, because we know through last year the Joint Committee of Oireachtas, Committee of Children, Disability and Equality, and February 21, many pieces of legislation we've been constantly asked the Business Committee to have them without pre-led scrutiny, and thankfully this wasn't one of them, because it's too serious and too important, and pre-led scrutiny is vital. While the Family Leave Bill 2021 provides for changes to the Parental Leave and Benefit Act 2019, the name change to the Family Leave Bill 2021 arises due to the inclusion of the bill, included in the bill, of measures to amend the Adoptive Leave Act 1995. I suppose the bit of background means that to have the policies that are intended to bolster and support gender equality. They are also important policy instruments for supporting child, maternal and paternal health and well-being, birth rates and various labour market outcomes, such as increased women's participation in the labour market and reduced gender pay gaps. I think that's very important because, we know in childcare especially, it's a very female-orientated, profession. And I'm chairperson of a board myself, looking after a childcare. Sorry, I was chairperson of it. I'm not any longer, but I was involved in the setup as well. And there are lots of issues there, but we must also be ever cognizant of when we're passing legislation like this, and so it looks fine and dandy, but we must respect the employer's perspective, and we must look at where they're coming from. And as an employer myself, with mainly because of the business is mainly with male workers, but we must look at the impact that these legislation will have on the ability of employers to, first of all, to abide by it. It's better to have a carrot and stick and encouragement rather than regulation to make them do it. So it's very important that we have, again, like other bills, that we have some assessment as to how it's bedding in and bedding down. And while the pre-lit scrutiny looks at one end of it, we must have a post-legislative. And Deputy Pringle had very important amendments into another bill here before we broke for 2 weeks ago, looking at time-sensitive reviews of legislation and the impact of the legislation. And on this bill, I think that will be ever necessary as well, because we need to see how it's bedding in, how employers can cope with it. It's one thing in a public service; they're able to, it's not their funds, it's the public purse. But for small employers, especially, and small businesses, they can have unnecessary and unintended impacts and consequences. Go to hand over to Deputy Conn.
Thank you very much.